Welcome back. That was the perfect start. Oh my god. Jesus. All right. Quick intermission. All right. After that short little intermission of Tony's podcast mic just deciding he does not want to live anymore.
It just gave up completely.
Just like another podcast with Tony.
Oh, man. And it's Alex and I were talking about it. It didn't just fall off the table. It shattered and split into like 4 different pieces. So I had to rebuild it.
Yeah, not even like it just fell off. It just
I don't know what happened.
Completely disassembled itself.
All right, so this is episode
12.
12.
12. So we're a dozen.
It's already too many.
Dozen in.
Yeah.
A dozen in. So we appreciate all our listeners that come back every week to listen in. So we appreciate you a lot. And on that topic, I have a feeling that a lot of our listeners are Canadian folk. So a lot of you will relate to today's episode, as I think we'll be talking about the biggest pains of being a car enthusiast in the North, or more specifically, a car enthusiast in Canada.
I would say just Toronto, Ontario area, like the GTA.
Yeah, I guess that is
even if you go to Montreal, it's different.
It is different.
Alberta,
in Montreal.
Different.
It is, but
right?
Some of these items I'm going to bring up are across the board as well.
I don't know about the stuff that happens east and west, but I know what happens.
Yeah.
Here, central. And
I think the greatest example I'll start with is completely on the other side of the world with car enthusiasts in Australia. Yeah. So recently, because we do a lot of research on what our next video should be and what kind of content we should be making, creating, and seeing what's viral and does good. And lately, Mighty Car Mods released a series of videos where they were fixing up, older cars or, cheap cars just to flip and how easy it is to flip and what works and what doesn't. And, episode 1, they had, what the heck did they have? They had a little Peugeot that they fixed up. And it was just like supposed to be almost like a great first car type of thing, like kind of cool, kind of like nothing too sporty yet. The second cars, Marty went and he bought Subaru Legacy wagon, manual turbo, kind of like a WRX type thing, but like the Legacy wagon is bigger. We didn't get them here, but kind of similar to like an
I've
Outback.
seen them. I've seen them. I went to America and H2O and shot a couple. They were beautiful cars.
Yeah, they do exist here. Just a lot of them are imported or they've just rotted away. And the third one is he went and he's like, no, that's the wrong way to do it. You get a boring car, and he bought a Corolla, fixed up a Corolla, and he made more money on the Corolla than he had those 2 cars, saying that boring is good sometimes, right?
Well, yeah, if you have a car that is boring, but your regular mom or non-car enthusiast would drive it, and you know how to fix cars, sometimes all it needs is control arm, ball joints, to get it back to 100% of the value.
Yep, and that's exactly what they did in that episode, right? They bought it for, I think, it was the cheapest one. They bought it for $2,000, fixed it up, and sold it for $8,000, right? And he spent 6 hours doing it, so he's he made $1,000 per hour, basically.
Yeah,
right.
That's really flipping cars is really big in America. Canada's market is just so fluctuating that it's a little bit harder to flip cars here.
And maybe actually that might be the topic of it's kind of same topic here, but it's difficult to do in Canada because of one main reason. In Australia, you're able to buy cars for cheap, and they typically have paint issues, issues, but no rust. And that's a big factor because, sure, these cars have been sitting for a while. People don't want to maintain them. It needs some engine work. Finding a $500 car here typically means it's rotted out.
Yeah. Or there's a lot of problems with it.
Yes.
Non-fixable problems.
Non-fixable problems. But in Australia, at least, when you have a car that has those non-fixable problems, the shell is clean. Right? And that's a big factor for being able to do things like that. Whereas, here we want to buy a cheap Beamer. It's one might be rotted and one might just have rot and everything wrong in the engine, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no in between per se. And I guess that's where you can kind of say that Americans kind of are able to flip their cars a little bit easier, because you look at the amount of states, southern states, you got Tennessee, you got Florida, you got even Georgia doesn't have winters, they don't salt the roads. You got California, you got Utah, you got Nevada, and all these states that don't have wild or heavy winters. Heck, even going up north, like when I was supposed to move to Portland, a lot of my buddies here, car buddies, were like, "Oh, dude, I'm gonna come there, buy a car, drive it back because they're all rust free over there," right? Even though Portland actually sat higher than Toronto, longitudinally, right? So Toronto was more south than Portland was, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
It had no winters, no salt, no rust. It's just a West Coast thing, right?
Yeah.
Which was crazy because you're going north to no rust, right? If you think about it that way, it's kind of like, yeah, it's like confusing, isn't it? So because of that, there's no rust, and you're able to, flip these cars, because a lot of the time people give up on their cars because they mechanically require too much in places like that, or in Australia and stuff. Like, if all the belts need to be done, this needs to be done, that needs to be done, and you take it to mechanic, and it costs $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to do, you'll be like, you know what, I'd rather put that into a down payment on a new car, right?
Yeah.
Let me sell this thing for $500. And it's a rust-free car that just has, the parts might not be expensive, it just needs a lot of labor, which makes sense to do, because at the end of the day, you're not stuck with a rotten shell. And that's why, you have a lot of older cars, a lot of cheap cars. Like my buddy David, he's in Australia right now. He moved there with his fiance. She's doing med school. And he's like, oh man, I'm going to have to buy a car. I'm like, dude, you can buy a Daihatsu Charade for like $500. He's like, what? He's like, won't have problems? I'm like, it's a cheap Japanese market car that's like tiny. Like we don't have cars like that tiny. They're like basically K cars.
Yeah.
And you can buy them for cheap to maintain, cheap to run, cheap to everything, right?
It might have problems, but it'll be problems that you can fix.
It won't be like, oh my god, this thing needs so much body work because it's rotted away.
Yeah, and that's another thing when it comes to like even being an enthusiast in Canada working on cars. Like the rust is impossible to maintain, but then doing the small fixes are impossible to maintain, because those small fixes will be a 3-day job due to rust.
Yeah, a one rusty bolt breaks.
Oh my gosh, and that's it. And
yeah.
I have in my car currently, I have 3 broken bolts that I just have been like, I'll deal with it later, because I'm like, I can't deal with this now. It's
no.
like,
and actually, I know you mentioned that you haven't had a good insight of the American car scene or a comparison. But one thing that I know you can agree with me on and comment on is when we were in Florida.
I was gonna mention this.
How many cars were in accidents and they didn't fix them?
Oh, I really wish we got footage, because there was like at least 20 cars, and we snapped our neck every time. We were like, did that guy just get hit? It was insane. How many dents and like just complete like. Just looks like people were driving around and they had just got T-boned.
It's a combination of things, and actually, sorry for I don't know if Logan even listens to these, but sorry for calling you out, Logan. But we arrive and Logan texts me. She's like, "Yeah, I rear-ended someone yesterday. Can you come look at my car and fix it?" And like
just casually. When's the last time you got into an accident?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. A while ago. Oh my goodness.
Like probably 2-3 years.
Longer.
Least.
I don't think during COVID I've been in a collision.
I mean, I got in a really bad accident, but the last time I rear-ended somebody was probably 5 years ago, and it was just stupid because we were both waiting at like a yield sign, and he was supposed to go, and I thought he did go, so I pressed an accelerator, and he didn't go. But because I barely hit him, we just kind of shook hands and walked away. Mm-hmm. So nothing happened. But 5 years, and then Logan tells us the week we fly in, oh yeah, I just hit somebody.
Like it's a casual thing.
Yeah, like what?
And like she's like, I just want it to work so it doesn't beep. So we like moved some sensors around, some other stuff, and she's like, okay, cool. And then she went on to do like 100 miles per hour on the freeway. Like passing us in our rental like Camaro that's in good shape. Like, oh frick! Not to call her out again too. Luckily she fixed this, but because in
You're calling
Florida,
her out.
I am calling her out a little bit, but she fixed this, so she learned from her mistake. She was like in Florida, a lot of people like really use their tires till the end
Oh yeah,
because it's warm all year. They don't have winter
yeah.
and stuff like that, and
Or
like
we have to swap every
swap
season.
tires, and not even like like we have like lots of like Florida has lots of rain too and stuff, but Florida has lots of rain and stuff, but here it's just like a mix of weather. It's unpredictable. It gets colder there. If it's like raining, it's warm. So people drive till they have like no tread left.
Yeah.
And that's what Logan did. And she caught a nail with like no tread, and she was forced to get like new tires. I'm like, these tires are garbage anyways. You can't even patch them, right? Like you need new tires. I filled up her tires. She drove home and got tires the next day, right? And it's just mind-boggling that people decide to like drive on like no tread, like basically racing slicks at that point.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing about Canada too. Like
You can't get away with that.
we're gonna keep bouncing to America, to different countries. But the thing about Canada is, because of our weather being so bipolar and temperamental, our roads are awful.
They are.
It doesn't matter if last week they fixed the road, the next day, giant pothole. Because, well, I mean, there's cheap materials being used on the roads. Just that's a whole another thing. But then there's just the bipolar weather constantly beating on our roads. Even if you have a nice car, pop a wheel, break your control arm, break a friggin' ball joint. It's like you can't have a nice car on these roads because they're not maintained properly. And even if they were, the weather doesn't allow them to be maintained properly. Yeah. That's another downside about being a car enthusiast in Canada.
And when you compare to the roads in Florida, obviously,
dream.
Like I've been in LA and they don't have as nice roads, but they think that their bad roads are actually bad, and I'm like, no, compared to Canada, this is beautiful. Like they're just not maintained as well. Florida maintains the roads extremely well because it's a tourist destination. A lot of people drive there and stuff like that, so they're maintained quite well. But the weather has a big impact because, like, for the curbs, remember I brought the whole thing up about the curbs, that the curbs are different. They don't have like the big curbs like we do. Like
they're slanted.
Yeah, so it's
just
like
ramp off of them.
Yeah, it's like go airborne, not curb your wheel, right?
That's probably why you see a lot of American accidents with cars just coming into oncoming traffic. Like we can't do that here. Well, we can, but it's really hard because first you blow a tire. At one time, I actually drifted off a little bit. I was on my phone as a teenager, but I drifted off a little bit, hit a curb, and popped my tire, and then had to get a tow truck. Like you wouldn't do that in Florida because it's like just a ramp.
Yeah, and I think the big thing there is that you need to see where like where that end is, so the snow piles up differently in those different spots and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But to other pains of car enthusiasts, we're not able to flip cars like that. And second topic, going back to Australia or even the United States, which is mind-boggling to me, is importing of cars. And Americans will look at us and be like, oh, you guys have the 15-year rule, we have 25, we have to wait so long. Yeah, but once we import them, like here, at least in Ontario, I know different provinces. Different provinces are different. I know Alberta, BC, wildly different. The insurance is crazy expensive in Ontario.
Insurance and the import fees.
Import fees too here because we have to transport them from the port. Because if you just get it to the port, it's not that bad. You just have to drive it over. But then you're paying for a second transport truck to bring it to Toronto or wherever. Because like even if you get it to the port of Montreal, that's the closest port basically. That's still like a 5-hour truck drive, right? And then you're paying that trucking fee right there. Because if you go to like BC, there's a lot of imported cars there because they have like provincial insurance. So it's not that crazy for a right-hand drive car. But here it's like, I remember looking, I really wanted an Evo 5 and I got an insurance quote. And it was like only one or two insurances do it. And they wanted like $800 a month, right? A month. For an Evo,
wow.
Right? And what in comparison, my Jetta was like $250 a month. So it's like, dude, that is like almost 4 times as much, right?
And that's like we're fully adults. We have clean abstracts. Like That
Yeah.
should give you your lowest insurance. And wow, $800.
Yeah, and even classic car
That's
insurance doesn't
crazy.
insure right-hand drives. Like you go to Hagerty, like my Miata's insured with Hagerty, right?
Yeah.
They don't insure right-hand drive cars. Whereas
Really?
in the States, there
Huh.
you have so much variety and availability that, once you do pass that 25-year rule, you can insure it and it's cheap. Like I'm pretty sure that, I don't know how true this is, but I have a buddy down in Florida and he pays $500 for the year for, like a Skyline, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy because that's what some people pay per month here, right? And these aren't cars you drive every day anyways, right?
Yeah. Well,
So,
it's funny that you mentioned insurance because that can be a fourth topic about Canada.
yeah,
Because some places in America, it's not mandatory
to
that
have
you have
insurance.
car insurance.
Yeah.
Where here, you can have 4 cars, but you can only drive one of them as long as it's insured. Like, or
Yeah.
you can insure one of them and drive one of them,
Yeah.
and you can't just swap insurances and then go take out your next car. You have to fully get it. Like,
Each car has to be
oh my
individually
gosh,
insured.
it's
Yeah.
so annoying.
Yeah.
So-
Like actually, to maybe give just some insight in Europe, insurance is on the vehicle, not on the person.
Mm,
So like when
That's
I go
beautiful.
to Poland and I borrow my cousin's cars, they're insured, right? Like it's not like, oh, like don't worry about, like, watch out for my insurance. It's like, no, if I crash the car, it's on me because I was the one driving it. The car's insured, right? You're not paying a premium. But then again, you pay big premiums on, like, hey, this thing has a V8. It's like you're paying a big premium on that. They don't look at like your driving history. It's like bad fuel economy, can go fast, this, that, and that's it, right? So it varies.
well,
So,
it's honestly, oh my, it's just like most things in Canada are just so corrupt these days. And it's like insurance is one of those that they'll look at you personally, but they won't look at the 79-year-old that's going to crash his car just going to get his medication.
yeah,
Like, they're going to look at me because I have like maybe a nicer car and I'm a little bit younger. They're going to be like, oh, this is probably a bad driver.
yeah.
It's like, I can drive fast, but I can drive better than most people on the road. Like, so it's like, how is it make that make sense?
Yeah. And going off of that topic of frick, actually, you know what?
Speed?
No, not speeding. Frick, now I got myself confused. On the topic of not insurance,
Importing?
not importing the cars. Frick, now I lost my train of thought. I just had it.
Oh, sorry.
Tip of my tongue. Tip of my tongue.
Well, we talked about weather, maintenance, importing, insurance.
Yeah, insurance.
I talked about some speed, but that's entirely separate. Corruption in Canada.
Oh,
Okay.
that was the one. And the amount of companies that exist in Canada that sell, automotive parts, and because I guess that's on our topic, like replacement parts, things like that. It's just so many more options in the States.
Yeah.
So you want to buy performance parts for a VW, right? You have ECS tuning, you have FCP Euro, and then you have, a couple other ones, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like in Canada, that doesn't really exist.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. ECS, you have to pay to import those parts.
Yes. And that's where the corruption comes in that we were talking about is you go and you pay customs charges on these things. So you already pay the tax and then you pay customs on top of everything for, the same parts. And it just doesn't make sense,
And
right?
then tax on top of the customs.
Oh, yeah. And then they're going to start charging us carbon tax for just transporting things. Guaranteed.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So that doesn't necessarily help. And yeah, and that's why it's extremely expensive and annoying being a car enthusiast in Canada, just like some of the few things, right? And on top of that, we already kind of touched on it with the importing cars, variety of cars. But in Canada, like, we sometimes don't get the cool cars that Americans get. We're like just north of the border, and we don't get the Chevy SS. We don't get, certain trims of the Corvette. We don't get certain trims of the Camaro and other things like that. Whereas they do get those, different cars and things like that. Or they're American special only cars that exist that us Canadians don't end up getting. So
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, talking about Europe is a completely different story, but just the fact that there's so many cars that California alone gets too, right? That we can't even touch because if they're only in Cali, then the other states want them afterwards, and then they never end up here in Canada.
Yeah. Well, that's a specific topic on its own.
Yeah.
And it is a video we're going to be making very soon about the Canadian market. Why Canada just stopped making cars, pretty much.
Yes.
Like, because we used to be, well known for our vehicles and just companies in general. And now we dropped off the map. So that's going to be a video that we're going to drop very soon.
Yeah. Hey.
But yeah, that's another downside of being a car. It's in Canada. We don't have the cars made here anymore, right?
Yeah.
Well, we do have the cars made here, but they're usually electric.
Well, that's been
and bad.
Not necessarily. Like they built a lot of Fords here. There's the Ford plant in Oakville and other stuff.
Yeah, but they just laid off a lot of people. I mean, are they
that
still
was Chevy.
making cars?
That was Chevy.
Oh, I thought Ford as well did it.
Maybe Ford as well did it, but I know Chevy had big layoffs. Toyota, Hyundai is going to be building cars here too. I don't know if you heard. So Toyota just signed a deal that the new electric cars are going to be built here by Toyota, which Toyota obviously is going to sell so many of those, which is going to create jobs. But like, we have these facilities, we have the people willing to work. We should have our own brands, right? But we don't. So
our own brands.
Yeah.
All right. You heard it here first. Somebody create a Canadian car brand. Let's go. Get on it. Enough of this. There
are Canadian car brands, and we'll get into it in another video, but they are not what you expect. We'll leave it at that.
All right.
But going back to how, even Australia, other places like that, and going back to those performance parts, Australia maybe doesn't have that. Actually, no, Australia has a lot of in-house brands that they create stuff there, like PWR. Is a big one. Yeah. Like everyone has their intercoolers and stuff like that. Big Australian company. I guess Canada is known for one thing, I will say, for performance parts, because of our laxed emission laws here in certain parts of Canada. Canada is like one of the only places that you can get diesel delete kits still.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yes. So my whole delete kit is made in Canada and sold in Canada, and Americans buy the same kit and they ship it from Canada to the States because the EPA in the USA is all over these people, right?
So we get one thing.
We get one thing.
And not everyone can even use that one thing.
And that's the thing that we like the Canadian, I don't know if it's the EPA or whatever you call, they don't chase after these guys for making these parts or having these tunes, but there's states like in the United States that they like the cities, they don't require emission testing, right? So Americans can freely install these parts and get away with it, but they can't produce these parts. Whereas here in Canada, technically you can't really install these parts because you can still get MOT'd and stuff like that. Where there's cities in the States where you won't get MOT'd.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of funny in that way. That we have one benefit, but we can't even utilize it for ourselves because Americans get to utilize it.
Well, I don't even know where to buy performance parts these days. You have to go to like a performance shop, but then that performance shop will ship their stuff in from the States. So at the end of the day, you're paying the performance shop, you're paying for the part, and then you're paying the import fee. So It's like, for like a turbo, you're paying 3 times as much as you would pay in America.
Yeah.
And that's not viable.
And it's actually funny. And I think in the next few weeks, one of the girls I was modeling at our last photo shoot, Caitlin, she works at Vibrant, which is a Canadian company. And they make a lot of like resonators, performance parts, stuff like that too. So we'll get her to talk about that. But even she mentioned, she's like, like even though we're a Canadian company, a lot of our stock's in the USA.
The US, yeah.
She's like, I told her I needed some couplers for the TDI. And she's like, oh yeah, let me know. They're probably in the States. So it's
great.
It's mine. And they have a huge warehouse here.
And it's empty.
So yeah. We also have Arthur from Vibrant come in as well.
Oh,
so
nice.
Arthur from Toronto is going to come in.
I know Remy uses a lot of he welds a lot of Vibrant products.
They're really good quality stuff.
Good, yeah. I see them pricey in a lot of shows too.
Yes.
I'm sure not in the States though.
What? Oh, pricey? Vibrant is huge in the States.
No, pricey. I mean, they're not as pricey in the States.
The same prices.
Well, yeah, but you're not paying
Yeah.
those import fees.
But it's crazy. It's a Canadian brand that's known down there, right? Like Adam LZ, he loves Vibrant.
oh yeah,
Yes,
okay.
like he even got sponsored by Vibrant after owning so much Vibrant because he loves the quiet flow muffler that they have, the resonator. I want one of those too because it just makes every car sound good.
Yo, let's go. Vibrant. Let's sponsor the Beamer.
Yeah, actually, funny. We'll figure that out. We're in talks with distributor of Vibrant because Vibrant doesn't sell direct.
Oh,
right?
great. Okay.
So hopefully soon we will have some Vibrant on hand.
I like that there's still surprises even though I work here.
Yes,
yes. I'm always like surprised when we get sponsored by somebody or
Yeah.
like,
yeah. Big reveal coming out soon with the rap as well. You guys saw Dane. We'll be doing a rap very soon with him, and Tony got surprised by some information from that.
It's exciting.
Exciting.
Information.
Yeah, and then the Beamer also, like you'll see in a video, we recently got some Go Fast goodies put on, which make it sound better and drive a little better too. So we'll go from there.
The car is not boring stock anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Now Tony gets extra scared when I drive.
I spill all my drinks now.
Yeah. But yeah, those are some of the downsides of being Canadian car enthusiast.
One more thing.
Yeah, let's
that
hear.
We didn't cover is the cop attention that you get in Canada.
It also varies because in the state of California, the cops are even tougher than they are here. Like people get state refed all the time in Cali. So I say it depends on your state. But if we're comparing Florida to Canada, Florida is like a dream, right? How many modified, bro? How many?
Well, the OPP is just hungry out here. Like they see you have anything, and they'll ticket you for 5 things. It's not like they'll just.
It does relate back to last week's topic of the takeovers. And they've kind of ruined it because cops used to be way more chill, right?
And that's the problem, right? Like, if you didn't see our last video, our last podcast, check that out. You'll understand what we're talking about. But Canada used to be chill, and now it's not. So another reason that it's hard to be enthusiast out here is, cop attention because of morons, honestly.
It's tougher and tougher. And like, I saw a guy on TikTok that he had like 2002 to 2006 Honda Civic, like that not love generation of Civic.
The round one.
Yeah, the kind of bubbly one.
Yeah.
Right? And like he had like lowering springs and like what's it called, a windshield banner and something, and he got his plates pulled. It's like, dude.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah,
there must have been something.
Oh yeah, he just had all the wrong modifications. Like he had like tinted license plate covers.
Oh yeah, that's
he
bad
had a sticker.
here.
He had a windshield sticker, and he was like lowered where his wheels were a little bit big, rubbing against the suspenders.
A windshield sticker, like across his windshield.
Like at the bottom,
like a banner.
Like not the banner, the bottom part.
Really?
Yeah.
I used to have a big, thick banner going across.
Oh frick! I have a big
on
thick
the bottom.
banner.
And I never got pulled over.
I have one at the top, and I have the bottom one.
It's weird. It's all about timing, and like you just gotta watch what you're doing around the cops in Canada.
Guaranteed.
Because, like,
And
if you can disguise yourself as regular traffic, if you drive on a lower gear and you're not revving it and you're not spinning tires.
Yeah.
Speaking of spinning tires,
yeah.
Alex was in my neighborhood picking me up on like one of the busiest intersections. There's so much traffic going through. There's a cop maybe 15 cars away.
No. The cop was at another intersection.
Okay, he can't even see us.
No.
But he hears, so Alex just guns it a little bit, like revs it a little bit.
I
to
changed
get
lanes
the light.
and I was up a hill. So with the DSG, you don't want to go lightly because it'll roll back a little bit like a manual. So I gave it a bit more gas and I was on winter tires. So they squealed because it was summer.
A tiny bit.
Yeah.
A tiny bit. And the cop came out of nowhere, came barreling after us. We're over here like picking up pizza.
No, you're missing the funniest part. Because the
Go
funniest
ahead.
part is I'm like, what an idiot. Because some dude was like, last second decided he wanted to turn. So I went around him. That's why he floored it and went over the hill. And I'm like pulling into Little Caesars and I see the lights behind me. And I was like, and I just stop. And then Tony's like, dude, drive forward. See, Little Caesars is right there. I'm like, dude, I got pulled over. And Tony's like, what? Really? Looks behind him like,
I didn't even realize.
I was like, Tony, come on. But yeah, it was just funny. It's like, why are you stopping here? It's like, because I just got pulled over. You're like,
Yeah.
what? What do you mean you got pulled over? So
It's funny though. I even asked the cop. I'm like, hey, can I go get our pizza?
yeah.
He didn't let me. He was like, I'm not talking to you right now, sir.
Oh no,
Really? What a like.
No, that
what
was
a jerk.
that was even funnier because you're like, officer, he's not from here. He doesn't know the road, and he's like, I'm not talking to you. And then Tony's like, I'm like, Tony, just be quiet. Just be quiet. Like I saw you like ready for another comeback. I was like,
ready
please,
for it.
please,
Why are you
please
talking to me like this? Come on.
But yeah, that ticket ended up getting dropped because on the body cam footage, the officer literally said, like, I didn't see what happened. I just heard noise and it came
and,
up.
and
It had to be you, is the way he said it.
yeah,
So when I asked for disclosure of evidence, it got dropped right away, which is hilarious.
yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the tickets I've had. So,
Anyway, so yeah, six valid points of why it's not the best to be a car enthusiast in Canada. 1, weather. 2, rust. 3, import fees. 4, what was the other one? Insurance. 5,
availability of car parts.
availability of car parts.
And conditions of the road.
6, conditions of the road.
I think there was a few other points.
7 would be cop attention then.
Cop attention too.
That's not specifically to Canada though.
No,
It's
that's
just,
Toronto, YYZ,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
area. So that's where we're affected. But yeah, I think we'll end it off there. Hopefully next podcast. We had a few guests lined up for this week, but it's been a bit hectic.
It's been busy, yeah. I won't be on the next time. We'll have another guest. I'm typically trying to fill the spot when we don't have a guest. Otherwise, we want to hear from other people.
Yeah, Tony has a lot of editing to do.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, you're stealing me from editing. So
Yeah.
I don't want to. The thing with Tony too is he does the podcast and he has to listen to the podcast like 2 or 3 times to edit it. And we post it and then he listens to it again. So he'd rather enjoy it for the first time when he has to edit it.
Yeah.
So he's gonna get those laughs in, not oh, I know what I said here. Ha ha ha.
Exactly. I know everything that's being said when I watch these videos. I'm like,
Again. So
yeah.
thank you so much for tuning in to the Parts and Pistons podcast, episode 12 and on. So we're over a dozen. So maybe we'll get a dozen donuts as a prize for our next person on. So
Krispy Kreme.
if you're on next, remind me and I will get a dozen donuts. So thank you so much for tuning in.
You're going to get a dozen but now, why didn't you get me donuts today?
I didn't think of it till now.
Today is our dozenth.
I didn't think of it till now.
So our lucky number 13, whoever's going to be on next.
Yep, 13 reasons why you should listen to the Parts Avatar podcast.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Thanks.
watching. Bye.
Remember, Parts Avatar has got your back, so don't forget to subscribe to the Parts Avatar channel so you don't miss any of these exciting videos.